Good morning, everyone. I am Fatima Grace Bokbok, and I will be discussing about the ethical and social issues in information systems. So, after this chapter, we will be able to answer the following questions. First, what ethical, social, and political issues are raised by information system? What specific principles for conduct can be used to guide ethical decisions? Third, why do contemporary information systems technology and the internet pose challenges to the protection of individual privacy and intellectual property? Lastly, how have information systems affected our everyday lives? So, for the chapter outline, we will be talking three main topics here. First is understanding ethical and social issues related to systems, ethics in an information society, and the moral dimensions of information systems. And then the subtopics of each main topics will be discussed later on. Understanding ethical and social issues related to system. So when we talk about ethics, this refers to the principles of right and wrong that individuals acting as a free moral agents use to make choices to guide their behaviors. And as a manager or an employee, we will have to decide for ourselves what constitutes proper legal and ethical conduct. So, ethical issues in information systems have been given new urgency by the rise of internet and electronic commerce. So, internet and digital firm technologies make it easier than ever to assemble, integrate, and distribute information, unleashing new concerns about the appropriate use of customer information, the protection of personal privacy, and the protection of intellectual property. A model for thinking about ethical, social, and political issues. Ethical, social, and political issues are closely linked. So, the dilemma you may face as a manager of information systems typically is reflected in social political debate. So, let's imagine a society with individuals and political institutions. Individuals know how to act in this community because social institutions like family, education, organizations have developed or well honed rules of behavior. And these are supported by laws developed in the political sector that describes the behavior and promise sanctions for violations. Now, um, instead that the disturbing force is a powerful shock of new information technology and system hitting a society more or less at rest. Suddenly, individuals are confronted with a new situation, often not covered by the old rules. The social institutions cannot respond overnight to these ripples, so it may take years to develop etiquette, expectations, and social responsibility, politically correct attitudes, or approved rules. Now, political institutions also require time before developing new laws and often require the demonstration of real harm before they act. In the meantime, we may have to act, so we may be forced to act in legal gray areas. Here we have the relationship between ethical, social, and political issues in an information system. So it has five main parts. So first, let's talk about the information rights and obligations. What information rights do individuals and organizations possesses with respect to themselves? What can they protect? Property rights and obligations. How will traditional intellectual property rights be protected in a digital society in which tracing and accounting for ownership are difficult and ignoring such property rights is so easy? Accountability and control. Who can and will held accountable and liable for the harm done to individual and collective information and property rights? Next is the system quality. What standards of data and system quality should we demand to protect individual rights and the safety of the society? Last one, the quality of life. What values should be preserved in an information and knowledge based society? Which institutions should we protect from violation? Which cultural values and practices are supported by the new information technology? So now let's talk about the key technology trends that raise ethical issues. So ethical issues long preceded information technology. Nevertheless, information technology has heightened ethical concerns, taxed existing social arrangements, and made some laws obsolete and or severely crippled. So here we have the table 4.2 technology trends that raise ethical issues. So first, let's talk about computing power doubles in every 18 months. So the doubling of computing power every 18 months have made it possible for most organizations to use information systems for their core production processes. As a result, our dependence on system and our vulnerability to system errors and poor data quality have increased. Now, social rules and laws have not yet adjusted to this dependence. The standards for ensuring the accuracy and reliability of information systems are not universally accepted or enforced. The impact of this is that more organizations depend on computer systems for critical operations. Now let's talk about the data storage. Costs rapidly decline. Advances in data storage techniques and rapidly declining storage costs have been responsible for the multiplying databases on individuals, like the employees, customers, and potential customers that are maintained by private and public organizations. These advances in data storage have made the routine violation of individual privacy both cheap and effective. The very large data storage systems capable of working with terabytes of data are inexpensive enough for large firms to use in identifying each customers. The impact of this is that organizations can easily maintain detailed databases on individuals. Now, with data analysis advances in data analysis techniques for large pools of data are another technological trend that heightens ethical concerns because companies and government agencies are able to find out highly detailed personal information of individuals with contemporary data management tools. Now, companies can assemble and combine the myriad pieces of information about you stored on computers. It became much more easily than in the past. So that the impact of this is that companies can analyze vast quantities of data gathered on individuals to develop detailed profiles of individual behaviors. Now, think of all the ways you have generate computer information about yourself. Let's say credit card purchases, telephone calls, magazine subscriptions, video rentals, mail order purchases, banking records, and so on and so forth. So, put together and mined properly, this information could reveal not only your credit card information but also your driving habits, your tastes, your associations, and what you read, watch, and your political interests. Now, siguro no, as an example of this, if you guys ever noticed kapag nagsisearch tayo sa Facebook, let's say you're trying to look for um, watch or let's say cellphone sa internet. So, pag kinlik natin yung search button, automatically may magpa-pop up doon no, yung mga choices natin, different types of cell phones. Now, after that, few minutes after that, kapag pumunta tayo sa homepage ng ating Facebook account, we can see na meron na ding magpa-pop up na mga ads or na mga posts regarding doon sa same na hinanap natin earlier, which is yung cellphone. So, bibigyan tayo ng options ni Facebook na kung ano yung base doon sa hinahanap natin. So, that's what they call profiling. So, ayun po. With the very simple na hinanap natin doon sa internet, magpo-provide na siya sa atin ng mga options. So, ayun. So, that's how technologies work, especially ngayon. Now, Companies with products to sell purchase relevant information from these sources to help them more finely target their marketing campaigns. So, the use of computers to combine data from multiple sources and create electronic dossiers of detailed information on individual is called profiling, just what I've mentioned earlier. So, mobile device growth impact. So, the impact of this is that individual cell phones may be tracked without user user consent or knowledge. So, yeah. Here we can see um, this is what we call the non-obvious relationship awareness, or the NORA. So this is a new data analysis technology. Again, this is called the non-obvious relationship awareness. Has given both the government and the private sector even more powerful profiling capabilities. So NORA can take information about people from many disparate sources such as employment applications, telephone records, customers listings, and wanted lists, and correlate relationships to find obscure hidden connections that might help identify criminals or terrorists. So um, NORA technology can take information about people from desperate sources and find obscure, non obvious relationships. It might discover, for example, that an applicant for a job at a casino shares a telephone number with a known criminal and issue an alert to the hiring manager. Now, finally, advances in networking, including the internet, promise to greatly reduce the cost of moving and accessing large quantities of data and open the possibility of mining large pools of data remotely using small desktop machines, permitting an invasion of privacy on a scale and with a precision therefore unimaginable. So now, let's talk about ethics is an information society. Ethics is a concern of humans who have freedom of choice. Ethics is about the individual choice. Now, when faced with alternative courses of action, what is the correct moral choice? What are the main features of ethical choices? So here we have the basic concepts, so which are the responsibility, accountability, and liability. Ethical choices are decisions made by individuals who are responsible for the consequences of their action. Responsibility. It is a key element of ethical action. Responsibility means that you accept the potential cost, duties, and obligations for the decisions you make. Accountability. The mechanism are in place to determine who took responsible action and who is responsible. Systems and institutions in which it is impossible to find out who took what action are inherently incapable of ethical analysis or ethical actions. Third, liability. It extends the sorry, it extends the concept of responsibility further to the areas of laws. Liability is a feature of political systems in which a body of law is in place that permits individuals to recover the damages done to them by other actors, systems, or organizations. Last is the due process. This is related to feature of law governed societies and is a process in which laws are known and understood, and there is an ability to appeal to higher authorities to ensure that laws are applied correctly. Ethical analysis. When confronted with a situation that seems to present ethical issues, how should we analyze it? So, here we have these 5 step processes that might help us. So, first, identify and describe facts clearly. Find out who did what to whom and where, when, and how. In many instances, you will be surprised at the errors in the initially reported facts, and often you will find that simply getting the facts straight, it helps define the solution. Now, it also helps to get the opposing parties involved in an ethical dilemma to agree on the facts. Next, define the conflict or dilemma and identify the higher order values involved. Ethical, social, and political issues always reference the higher values. The parties to a dispute all claim to be pursuing higher values. Say, for example, freedom, privacy, protection of property, and the free enterprise system. Typically, in an ethical issue, I'm sorry, an ethical issue involves a dilemma, so two diametrically opposed courses of actions that supports worthwhile values. Third, identify the stakeholders. Every ethical, social, and political issues has stakeholders. So these are players in the game who have interest in the outcome, who have invested in the situation, and usually who have vocal opinions. So we need to find out the identity of these groups and what they want. So this will be helpful later when designing a solution. Fourth, identify the options that you can reasonably take. You may find that none of the options satisfy all the interests involved, but that some options do a better job than the others. Now let's talk about the candidate ethical principle. So once your analysis is complete, what ethical principles or rules should you use to make a decision? What higher order values should you inform your judgment? Although you are the only one who can decide which among many ethical principles you will follow and how you will prioritize them, it is very helpful to consider some ethical principles with deep roots in many cultures that have survived thorough or throughout the recorded history. First, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. So you would have them do unto you. So putting yourself into the place of others and thinking yourself as the object of the decisions can help you think about fairness in decision making. So when it comes to decision making, we must always think if the decisions that we are going to do will be a better option or a better choice para din sa lahat. No, we should not make a decision based on the current situation kasi that decision might affect yung takbo ng organization ninyo or ng department ninyo later on. So when we make a decision, we also have to think of what will be the effect of it in the coming days or in the near future. Second, sorry. Second, if an action is not right for everyone to take, it is not right for anyone. So that's from Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. So we must ask ourselves, if everyone did this, could the organization or society survive? And then third, if an action cannot be taken repeatedly, it is not right to take at all. So that's from Descartes' rule of um, change. So this is a slippery slope rule. An action may bring about a small change now that is acceptable, but if it's repeated, it would bring unacceptable changes in the long run. So in the vernacular, it might be stated as once started down on a slippery path, you may not be able to stop. Fourth, take the action that achieves the higher or greater values. So that's a utilitarian principle. Now, some actions have extremely high failure cost of very low probability. So let's say building a nuclear generating facility in an urban area, or extremely high failure costs of moderate probability. So speeding and automobile accidents, yeah, those are some of the example, no? So avoid these high failure costs actions, paying greater attentions to high failure costs, potential of moderate to high probability. Fifth, take the action that produces the least harm or the least potential cost. So that's the risk aversion principle. Sixth, assume that virtually all tangible and intangible objects are owned by someone else unless there is a specific declaration otherwise. So that's what we call the no free lunch rule. So to explain it further, if something someone else has created is useful to you, it has value, and you should assume the creator wants compensation for his work, Actions that do not easily pass these rules deserve close attentions and great deal of caution. Now, the appearance of unethical behavior may do as much harm to you and your company as actual unethical behavior. The moral dimension of information systems. So, in this section, we will take a closer look at the five moral dimensions of information system. Information rights, privacy, and freedom in the internet age. Privacy is the claim of individuals to be left alone, so free from surveillance or interference from other individuals or organizations, including the states. So claims to privacy are also involved in the workplace. So sorry, here we have federal privacy laws in United States. So I will not be discussing all of this thoroughly, no, kasi this is actually from the United States setting. So, and most American and European privacy law is based on the regime called the Fair Information Practices, or the FIP. Now, FIP is a set of principles governing the collection and use of information about individuals. FIP principles also are based on the notion of the mutuality of interest between the record holder and the individual. So the individual has an interest in engaging in a transaction, and the record keeper. So usually a business or government agency requires information about the individual to support the transaction. Now, once information is gathered, the individual maintains an interest in the record, and the record may not be used to support other activities without individual consent. Here, the Federal Trade Commission for Fair Information Practice and Principle. So the FTC's FIP principles are being used as guidelines to drive changes in privacy legislation. So in July 1998, the US Congress passed the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or the COPA, requiring websites to obtain parental permission before collecting information on children under the age of 13. So this is actually very common, no? I don't know if Facebook still has this feature na kapag ka may nagre-register ng account sa Facebook, 'di ba na may nagpa-pop up na notification doon asking if this person is already 18 years old and above, or at least in a legal age. 'Di ba? Kasi if below sila doon sa required age ni Facebook, hindi sila ina-allow na makagawa ng account. So, yun. Internet challenge to privacy. So, internet technology has posed new challenges for the protection of individual privacy. Information sent over this vast network of networks may pass through many different computer systems before it reaches its final destination. So, each of these systems is capable of monitoring, capturing, and storing communications that pass through it. Cookies. So, ano nga ba ito? Cookies are small text files deposited on a computer hard drive. So when a user visits websites, so ayan po. So parang mga footprints ito nung mga sinesearch natin sa internet. Cookies identify the visitor's web browser software and track visits to a website. So when the visitor returns to a site that has stored the cookie, the website software will reach the visitor's computer, find the cookie, and know what that person has done in the past. It may also update the cookie depending on the activity during the visit. In this way, the site can customize its content for each visitor's interests. So ayan po. Next is the web beacons. Tiny software programs that keep a record of users' online clickstream and report this data back to whomever owns the tracking file, invisibly embedded in email messages and web pages that are designed to monitor the behavior of the user visiting a website or sending an email. Spyware. Software with a malicious behavior that aims to gather information about a person or organization and send it to another entity in a way that harms the user. The opt-in and opt-out in the opt-out and opt-in model. I'm sorry. So information consent permits the collection of personal information until the consumer specifically requests that the data may not be collected. So privacy advocates would like to see wider use of an opt-in model of informed consent in which a business is prohibited from collecting any personal information unless the consumer or the customer specifically takes action to approve information collection and use. So, ayan. Next, the property rights or the intellectual property. So, when we talk about intellectual property, it is considered to be intangible property created by individuals or corporations. Copyrights. Copyright is a type of intellectual property that protects original works of authorship as soon as an author fixes the work in a tangible form of expression. Patents. A patent is a type of intellectual property that gives its owner the legal rights to exclude others from making, using, or selling an invention for a limited period of time in exchange for publishing and enabling disclosure of the invention. Next, system quality, the data quality and system errors. So here, okay, for a moment, let me. Okay, the debate over liability and accountability for unintentional consequences of system use raises a related but dependent moral dimension. So, what is an acceptable, technologically feasible level of system quality? Individuals and organizations may be held responsible for avoidable and foreseeable consequences, which they have a duty to perceive and correct. So, ayan po, we have here the three principal sources of poor system performance. First, software bugs and errors. Second, the hardware facility failures caused by natural or other causes. Third, the poor input data quality. So, hence, there is a technological barrier to perfect software, and users must be aware of the potential for catastrophic failure. So the software industry has not yet arrived at testing standards for producing um, software or acceptable but imperfect performance. Although software bugs and facility catastrophes are likely to be widely reported in the press, by far the most common source of business system failure is the data quality. Lastly, the quality of life, equity, access, and boundaries. Computers and information technologies potentially can destroy valuable elements for our culture and society, even while they bring us benefits. If there is a balance of good and bad consequences of using information systems, who do we hold responsible for the bad consequences? So I hope everybody was able to learn something from my report today, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you so much.